Hello and welcome to Brands of Value, the podcast for leaders and changemakers. I am your host, David Götz, a curious mind interested in marketing, strategy, and startup consulting. Join me on this insightful journey into the heart of value creation in business. In each episode, we uncover the untapped and underutilized potential that lies within the realms of business and communication. Together with esteemed guests from diverse fields of business and expertise, we navigate the landscape of spotting, utilizing, and effectively communicating this potential to drive tangible value for business. In this episode, I am joined by Gordon Euchler and Maik Hoffman, the founders of the business intelligence company The Spikes. The Spikes collects, analyzes, and disseminates what excites people. And with that knowledge, they help businesses gain an unfair advantage in the market. And now, without further ado, and with a lot of excitement, welcome to the podcast, Maik and Gordon.
How are
Hi,
you?
David. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, but now let's learn a little bit about where you come from, what you do, and what you founded.
Oh, it's simple. I studied for as long as humanly possible because I enjoyed studying. Ended up doing a PhD in Cambridge. Then I had to work. Spent a couple of years in advertising. I had the pleasure of doing creative strategy, or what is called creative strategy, for bigger brands like Telecom or T-Mobile, Allianz, Telefonica, bwin across the globe. Joined consulting, Deloitte, helped building a creative consultancy, and now recently founded Spikes, which is a company for excitement, or consultancy for excitement. And I couldn't have done it without Maik.
Well, Maik, what brings you to Gordon? How did you get together? What's your background?
Funny enough, it's a question I got asked quite frequently. So I also studied, but compared to Gordon, just a little bit. Then started my career in the insurance industry, actually. And then did some in my very young and early years, tried out a lot of stuff. I became independent, had a small underground hip hop label when I was in my early 20s. And then, but soon enough, switched to advertising and marketing. Worked in different agencies, some of them focused on investor relations, some rather classical. Spent many times in digital agencies, and very soon got in contact with strategy. Obviously, mostly creative strategy. Happened to run a strategy consultancy, which was a part of a big German independent agency network. And during these years, we haven't really figured out yet. It must be somewhere between 15 and 20 years ago. I got invited by my former boss to join a pitch for a yogurt company, strawberry yogurt. And he brought me along probably because I was the only guy around with some digital experience. And I met Gordon, who just, those were the days. Those were the days when everyone who found the ad on the keyboard themselves would be hired immediately because they were considered to be digital experts. So, and during this pitch, I met Gordon, who just joined Grey from Cambridge, and I thought this is probably the most craziest thing I've ever heard, that someone did his PhD in Cambridge and now sits here with me trying to pitch for yogurt business. But somehow we liked each other and didn't really work too long or too intensively together, but never lost track of each other. And I would say what united us more or less was our curiosity and the eager to find out some truth and not just mere opinion. And I have to say this, if I suffered from anything during the last 25 years, switching from agencies to consultancies and marketing departments from companies back and forth, what got most on my nerve was that I sat in so many meetings with more opinions in the room than even people, and very little substance. So any idea was just as good as this momentum in that second, and no substance behind it. This was always something that I didn't like. And I had the feeling Gordon felt the same. And I don't want to spoil it too much, but I think we found quite a nice way to bring some more substance to these meetings.
Wow, quite the story of how you came together, and really exciting different paths. I think life is beautiful in that way. This show here is about value. So let's set a baseline. What does value mean to you, both of you? Could you maybe go each at it once, and then we'll go into what excitement is all about and how your company plays a part in that.
Sure. So when we talk about value, we talk about economic value, or do you mean values like friendliness and?
That's the exciting part. I feel like they are not separable. Both economic value and internal value is linked. But how do you see that?
Well, that's a long debate. Talking about values, not necessarily economically in the first place, I would say the biggest value for me is curiosity and the will to continue and to strive, right? To always want to learn more, always trying to improve things, even change things, but not for the sake of changing them, but for make things better, no? And then that might be solely economically, that might be for the people who work inside the company, this might be for the clients or even the whole planet. That's depends on the situation. But this will to become better, to change for the better, and staying curious to do so, I would say that that's a very important value for me. And other than that, well, this is a big conversation right now, all around purpose. Now, do you need a purpose to be of economic value, and what is interlinked? And do you become more successful in business the more you find your purpose and everything? It's a very long debate. But well, I would say I bumped into the global head of brand from P&G during the last Cannes Festival. And he was one of these people who promoted not neglecting your purpose and having an eye on that. But he also said, and I strongly agree, he said, well, what we must not forget is that if companies want to contribute to a better world, first of all, they need to make sure that they are successful in business. Otherwise, they can't. So I think it's a balance. Sometimes it helps to have a very, very clear purpose to become more successful financially. And sometimes out of a business economical success comes the opportunity to contribute to society even more, and everything in between as well. That was a long answer.
Well, long answer with many different tangents that you touched. What do you have to add to that, Gordon? Is there something that was missing from his explanation? Is there something you'd like to add?
I think you can make it short. I mean, make the world better for the people, the planet, and probably the bots. And there is no easy answer, because we all know if you make the planet better for the business, that can go at the expense of the planet. So it is difficult, but it's worth doing.
That's why I always ask this question at the start, because I get so many different ideas for this idea of value, and that's really exciting to me. Because
if there would be a simple answer, like we wouldn't have to have profound bikes, but we would be billionaires and running the planet already.
Yes, and we wouldn't need to have this discussion, because if we all agreed, why would we talk? So that's quite exciting. But now you've founded a company and it's all about excitement. how does excitement fit into this whole idea of providing value to customers? How does this, what even is excitement?
I don't know how it fits, because things don't neatly have to fit together and in boxes and everything. But if you want to change something, you need to make people move in their heads, in their minds, in their hearts, and act. And excitement, curiosity is an incredible lever and has an incredible power to make action happen. And that's where it's important. And that's important for companies, that's important for the planet, and. So what is excitement? Excitement is when, in our case, in terms of business, when a company manages to stand out. Because every day, hundreds of companies with thousands of approaches try to reach out to people and want something from them. And just physically, there's more stuff being talked at you, being directed at you, than you can deal with. Then you have hours in the day. So excitement to us are the very rare things that stand out here, hence the name Spikes. Excitement is when a company not just manages to reach people, to interest them, but manage to excite them and stand out from the thousands and thousands of things.
What sort of things?
Oh, well, advertising, sales, emails, net promoter score questionnaires, and. I mean, there are ever more. I think on a BCG, I think, did a study. The average length of a customer journey and the average number of potential touch points growth 28% every single year. But my time doesn't. My attention span doesn't. So when you manage to excite people about what you do, you get an unfair share of their time, their attention, their action, and also their wallet.
So it's all about comparison to a baseline, or is it, how does this work? How do you get excitement above something else? It's a comparative idea, right?
Oh, of course, because life is comparative. I mean, how does things manage to get your attention? I mean, since the Stone Ages, that's the game. I mean, sometimes it gets your attention in order you can run away, and sometimes it gets your attention so you find something to eat. And in our case, it's how does a company get your attention? And there is no silver bullet, no standard answer, but we have a search engine or a methodology where we can find these rare moments. And all we do is we ask people, I think by now roughly 156,000 in the Western world mostly, did you recently had contact with a company that you truly enjoyed? And out of the hundreds of companies, thousands of times that try to get something from your time and attention, you're allowed to name one. And that's it. And it took us like that's why, I mean, Maik had a very long answer how we met each other, and I mean long in a good way. And this shows how much time, effort, blood, sweat, no blood, but sweat, and probably even tears, it took to go to find that precise question that forces people, and methodology that forces the data to become not just dull analytical data that tell you what you know anyways in 5% left, 2% right, but to craft data and force them to be creative. Because what we do here is not just the standard data way where you see the averages, but you see the stuff that stands out. You see things and ideas that no one knows about because many of the companies don't talk about it. People don't talk about it. Stuff that doesn't exist like in the minds of the people out there, and stuff that we believe is worth sharing. Because if a company manages to excite people, that's a good thing. It means a company plays a decent role in people's lives. It provides value to them and it can reach them. And that's good. And we want to help spread that and help more companies do so.
I have two questions regarding this. The first one is, would you say that is an expansion or the next level to the aided and unaided brand recognition?
Oh God.
And the second is, could you give us a few examples of where you know, a company that you think is a really good example for this sort of thing that you do?
It goes, and Mike, you need to stop me if it becomes too aggressive. But the problem of brand awareness, like no one cares about brand awareness, like because it's not action oriented. We get the actions where a company can do something to get people's attention. Brand awareness is general stuff, fluffy. We're going much more precise to the touch point, the emotion, and then we let people describe what happened that made that excitement point stand out. This is much more actionable. So, of course, I mean, there's one very famous example from the telco industry. We looked into the telco industry and found one brand got mentioned. And then as soon as they mentioned the brand, we asked, which emotion did that contact evoke? And there was one brand that managed to evoke statistically significant the feeling of friendship. I'm not saying a brand like a friend or someone who runs around through life, oh my God, this is my friend, but someone ticked the box of friendship, and that is quite an achievement. So we looked deeper into it, and we also got from the people, from the data, at which touch point did that happen. So you look at which touch point does that brand manage to evoke friendship, and they do so at the touch point of the employee, because human to human, friendship is a human thing. But they also managed to evoke friendship at the touch point of a chatbot. So they have a chatbot that evokes friendship, and this is brilliant. And this is a massive reminder to all companies out there to not just use digital technology like Maik in the introduction said in the past, where you just hit the add button and oh my God, it's digital. We can make it faster, cleaner, more efficient. But use digital technology to become more emotional, more engaging. So rather than digital technology, do human technology. Another classic example is in the area of pricing. There's a well-known e-commerce retail site where people told us they love the website. It doesn't look beautiful, but it works. You pick your product, you pick your price, you pick your delivery method, and then you hit pay. And after people paid, so after the transaction is more or less concluded, where they think the e-commerce retailer doesn't want anything from them anymore, they get a discount. So they get the discount, but after they paid. And all of a sudden, the discount turns into a gift emotionally. We have a strong hunch that that retailer is doing it not out of kind-heartedness, not just, but because they calculate the subsequent increase in turnover is bigger than the discount they gave, but to the people, it's a gift.
And I think something beautiful comes to life here, or becomes clear. Well, first of all, it's that things that might sound counterintuitive or even impossible are possible and are relevant to people. Because everything that comes up in our search engine only comes up because people significantly answered to our question what was exciting to them. So if they wouldn't find it relevant, they wouldn't find it exciting, and it wouldn't come up in our surveys. And on top of this, obviously, it must be doable from a technical, social, you name it standpoint. And as Gordon always says, these are two factors that not all the ideas, and you remember the meetings with more opinions than people. There were so many ideas coming up. And in the end, we find out that, well, none of it was doable, or if it was doable, it was super expensive. And if it was super expensive and done, it was not relevant to people. But we all had a lot of opinions before. If you look at all we find, both boxes are already ticked. We know it's doable because someone has done it. And we know it's super relevant because people find it so exciting that they name it even unprompted in our surveys. And this was the little substance, the little added substance I was talking about when it comes to these discussions in the room.
This show is supported by the 30-Minute University of Planning. The 30-Minute University is a free community with over 10,000 people from all over the world, consisting of mentors and mentees from strategy departments. They facilitate 30-minute one-on-one meetings between seasoned professionals and those at the start of their careers. If you are a young professional looking to learn from the best in the business, or a strategist looking to share your expertise, search the 30-Minute University on LinkedIn. Wow. So your whole business has this big claim on their website and on all of your social media that there's this gap between how companies think they do customer centricity and how customers actually perceive it. Could you go into detail with that?
Yeah, I think it was in one of the better books. I'm pretty sure we can provide the name in the authors in the notes to this. But basically, they did a piece of quantitative research that said 80% of the companies are investing in customer centricity and claim to be customer centric, and 8% of the people think companies are customer centric. And you don't have to look up that study because you can feel it every day. I mean, especially if you work in marketing, customer centricity, and so on, you know that there's so much going on, so much activity, but you also know from your personal life, not everything companies do and that companies feel is exciting is truly truly reaching out to the people. And I think that there's a huge potential.
So say we've got some guy in a company, whether it be a CMO or someone who's looking to innovate. What are concrete steps you could take right now to get more excitement?
Call us.
And beyond that, is there like a few things that are generally true, or is there any truths that are universal?
No, I mean, any general advice would be ridiculous. I mean, you know that because you want to differentiate, you want to be ahead of the curve, and you want to move. And every industry is different in that. I mean, what's great in banking doesn't have to be great in another industry, so it takes a bit of effort. But the one general thing is, and it's an absolute platitude if you say it out loud, but doing it is difficult. Switch the perspective. Find ways to switch the perspective from the company to the people's perspective. Switch from what we're sending to what people are receiving. And I mean, in that respect, having worked, you can't say it very often, but in that respect, having worked in advertising for a decade or so is very healthy. Because in advertising, you make the mistake all the time and you can see it. Like Paul Smith, he's on our advisory board. He's a brilliant ad guy. Recently said most of the ads he's seeing today are directed not to the people, but to the company, to the people within the company, and that clearly goes away. I mean, it's part politics, part this and that, but making that switch is always worth it. And it's easy to put on a chart. It's easy to put in your values, to come back to the intro question, but it's super hard to do.
I would also like to add a little thing to your question of are there general advices or general truth, general wisdom? And obviously there's not. But what we see is that some things, methodologies, convictions, even techniques become more popular. And what used to be super exciting because it was rare becomes more and more standard and commodity. Of course, this happens. No, we have seen this with a lot of things. With a smartphone, when the iPhone came out, the first one that really worked with an interface, if we had done the excitement study back then, I'm quite sure people would have said that was an excitement point. So nowadays, the touchscreen is no longer an excitement point because it became commodity. And this is also what we sometimes see in our work, that it is not enough to just put yourself in the perspective of your customer once, create something that stands out and excites, and stay happy about it. Yeah. What's also true is you need to stay on your toes and need to understand what else is happening out there. Because, and this is actually one of our customers said that, it doesn't help me if I become twice as exciting as I was a year before, when my competitors manage to become 3 times as exciting or 4 times as exciting. So it's not a fun thing to do, and some people don't. Some people even neglect that they have competition, but in the end, the truth is there is competition, if you like it or not. And this is we even have one product that is called the Customer Centricity Alert, which makes sure that you stay on track what's happening around you. And if there is a competitor who just came up with something that excites people, that might be surprising to you and to everyone else. So there are no general truth, but you need to stay on your toes, because things that might have been super exciting might become a commodity tomorrow.
And also, this is super important in customer centricity, because unlike advertising, the stuff that happens in customer centricity is not as visible. There's no media money behind an innovation that you're doing in a service, a new thing that a DIY chain offers to customers. It's hidden from plain sight. And our methodology, our question, asking people what excited them, makes that stuff pop up. And then you can act strategically upon it. And you're also not being drowned in 700 pages of PowerPoint when the consultancy or the agency did a competitive review and photographed the internet. But you only get the stuff at which touch points your competitors manage to do the rare thing and excite people.
This whole idea of excitement and of other touch points also becoming more interesting is quite, I feel like I've heard it not said that clearly, but within the work of Rory Sutherland as well, where he talks about the idea of being maybe even counterintuitive. Just like the example you gave earlier, where the coupon is applied after you've paid. Do you have any more exciting examples like that, where something is counterintuitive and you're like, that's exciting?
Yeah. In banking, there's another classic example that we found. I studied until I was 31, and that means you're taking out credits a lot, and that means also you're getting used to not paying them, and then you don't pay 1 month, you don't pay twice, and the third time it gets interesting, because for you and the bank, because the bank has to make a call, and all intuition, all human centricity, yada yada yada, tells you, okay, that call, that has to be done by the most empathetic team, the well-trained team, the crisis team. But what we found is the most exciting call is by a bank, and there these calls are being done by bots. For one simple reason, people find that exciting, because I'm ashamed to admit to people that I didn't pay 3 times. I'm not ashamed in front of a bot. So in that respect, again, that bot is a lovely little thing. It takes out the shame. And that, when I'm not feeling ashamed, I'm much better at developing a solution. If I'm ashamed, I'm coming up with excuses, stories, what happened, and blame game. So that's another little thing.
Counterintuitive, but also then when you think about it and twist it around, then it makes sense again. And I guess your search engine can uncover more of these sort of little quirks and things within the customer journey.
Yeah. Plenty. As I said, I think we're 156,000 and counting.
And there's also one thing that wouldn't say it's magic, and in the end, the longer you think about it, the more obvious it is. But what we do is when we work with customers, we dive deeper into their industry and what they do, and into their competition and how they excite, how their industry excites people in the marketplace, at which touch points, with which emotions, and so on. How they, as a client, rank in this race compared to the competition, everything, but also compared to a cross-industry benchmark, I would say. And if you then look into how can our customers become better and more exciting, you find some tips and tricks and even some good advice and some clarity in the comparison to their own market, but even more so in the comparison, or I would rather say in the inspiration by a cross-industry view. So if you remember the chatbot that was able to provoke a feeling of friendship, that's obviously very interesting to all companies who want to be something like a friend to people. But it also proves that technology can evoke feelings or can be emotional, and then it can be super inspiring and helpful for, let's say, a bank that maybe doesn't want to provoke the feeling of friendship, but of security or be taken care of, or you name it. No? So the thing is that having this broad look cross industry and the broad inspiration cross industry helps you find touchpoint innovations that have not reached your industry yet. So with this service, you are able to not only catch up with your industry, but to already overtake in the first place, because you're not benchmarking with what your industry does best, but what the best companies across industry do best.
Well, let's have a little look at both of you. Both of you probably have companies that you personally are excited about. And I'd like to know, when was the last time you felt really excited about something that a company did to you, you personally?
Yeah, well, I have an excitement point. It's quite an obvious one. It's not big tech. I spent the last 20 months commuting to Barcelona. So my family was still in Frankfurt, but I was running a network agency, or a network within a network for a big automotive company. The headquarters was in Barcelona, and so I had to rent an apartment there. And it's a very lovely company. It's a startup. I think in this case I can name it. Their name is Euchler, and they build nice apartments. So furniture, everything is equipped. You only need to grab your toothbrush and your clothes. I think even their claim is home away from home, or something like this, or feel home away from home. And I had to move a lot because it was not so clear how long would I stay. So I only made 3-month appointments. And when I finally said, okay, it's over, there are no 3 more months, the guys I was in contact with, basically only via WhatsApp, via their service. No, they had to help me find a new apartment, get some cleaning done, everything. They sent over a small parcel with a bottle of wine and something nice to eat, with a little card. And all of them I had ever contact with signed and said, "Hey, Mike, it was a pleasure to have you. Hope to see you once again. Safe travel. Say hi to your family. We are happy for you that you are reunited again." I thought, like, wow, they remember who I am. So, and not just, okay, there were so many cleaning services and so many months, but more behind. It felt that really evoked the emotion of friendship with me, I had to say. That was amazing. So if I ever had to go somewhere else, I would definitely choose Okio again. And recommend them. See, it's the only company name I would name today.
Awesome. And Gordon, what sort of thing happened in your life that excites you?
Oh, plenty. I mean, I have kids, they're 8 and 10. So I got into a really bad habit of drinking way too much coffee over the last years. So I switched to decaf and finally found a decaf that's fabulous. It's called Ionio, Italian, obviously. Ionia, sorry. Second thing, it's even simpler. When the kids, my daughter is having bilingual school, so lots of learning for English. So we tried Duolingo for her, which is an app for language learning. I tried to convince her to use it. She doesn't need it because she's learning fast. But all of a sudden, for the first time in 15 years or 20 years, I got hooked on it, and I had the opportunity the first time I can learn Italian again, or any language, and I'm absolutely hooked to it. So this is brilliant. And then having set up a company, it's difficult to get a car, a leasing car. That's probably not an excitement point. But one of those cars, it's a Volvo. They have their sat nav, not one of those clunky self-produced things, but they simply have Google and Google Maps, and it works quite a bit better than most of the self-produced things. So that's another excitement point. And I think they're actually quite a lot.
For you personally, that's really cool. So say I'm a small company, I'm a big company. What sort of companies do you actually work with, and what's sort of the prerequisite to be able to get in touch with you and work with you?
I don't think there are many. B2B, B2C industries, we love them all. I think a serious interest in exciting your customers.
So it's a mindset that you're looking for, not a budget or a size where you're like, no, we only speak to people who have $1 million to spend.
But it doesn't need to be 7 figures spent.
Okay. And they just get in touch with you through your website, or where do they best contact you?
Yes, finally through our website. We had a bit of a hiccup. Someone seemed to have taken offense of our website, and so we got listed as potentially harmful content every now and then, but it's all good. You can reach out. You can find us on LinkedIn, or we find you. We're pretty active in recruiting clients. So just give us a shout. The-spikes.com if you want to see some potentially harmful.
Perfect. Potentially harmful content. Watch out. We do not endorse potentially harmful content, but we do endorse the spikes.
The spikes. And be sure enough, it's safe for work.
Safe for work, not NSFW.
No, it's safe for work.
If there's one final sort of call to action that you can do, both of you individually, maybe starting with Maik, what do you want companies to do? What do you want companies to know? Where do you want companies to be?
Well, obviously, what I would like companies to be, and even every professional, is appreciate your ideas and your opinions, but don't mistake them for what excites your customers. So they might not, and take your time and take your resources to find out early enough if you're on the right track, or if there's some other track with more potential. And the good thing is that the more substance you add, the more creativity can put into play to make it even more exciting.
And you, Gordon, do you have anything to add to that? Do you have something that you want the world to know about you, the Spikes? Any statement that you want to make?
If I learned one thing over these 4 or 5 years, it's easy to be cynical about what advertising, what marketing, and what companies are doing. Like, we've all heard it millions of times. Everyone is annoyed by advertising. What companies are doing is this and that. If I learned one thing through 156,000 data points, it's possible to not just play a little role in people's life, but to make a big difference and excite them. And it's worth pursuing it. So don't give in to cynicism. Believe in big marketing and do it big. And once you've found something that actually does excite people, go for it and do more of it.
Thank you so much to Gordon and Maik from The Spikes. You can connect with them on LinkedIn. Collections links will all be in the show notes. And I'm so excited to see where you're going. And thank you very much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having us. Have a good one.
Thank you, David. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
This was an episode of Brands of Value, the show for leaders and changemakers. Thank you for listening. May it bring you value. If you enjoyed this show, please consider bookmarking it so you don't miss any of the future and upcoming episodes. Do you have a unique angle of view that you think could help others innovate in their marketing or in their business? Drop me a line on LinkedIn and maybe you could be the next guest on the show. Cheers!